What's going on, guys? Dr. Andrew Fix coming back to you here on the code. Thank you so much for tuning in, listening to this podcast episode. Whatever method you're using to tune in, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, you name it. Really appreciate you guys hopping on there and spending some time with us. And hopefully this one hits because you're listening to this obviously in the present moment, right? Whenever you're listening to it, even though it was recorded before, you're listening to this in the present moment. And that's what we're going to talk about today, being present. I was speaking with my grandma a few nights ago, or a few days ago, excuse me, and we were talking to her about our son Aiden. He just had his first birthday. And one of the things that we were talking about was how focused and how intensely he was playing with this little busy board, this little activity board that he has. He's flipping switches, he's pulling Velcro, he's doing all the things. And when you're watching as an adult, when you're watching a child, and you're taking care of them, right? You're making sure that they don't hurt themselves. You're making sure that they don't crawl off the bed, whatever that is. All of you that have kids that are listening to this are probably chuckling and nodding your head. You have to be very present, because if you're not, if you have a lapse in your attention, if you have a lapse in judgment of, oh, they'll be fine, that might be the only quick head turn or the quick millisecond that they need to get into something that you didn't want them to get into, or to crawl off the bed when you were trying to stop them from doing that, or whatever it might be, fall down the stairs, God forbid, something like that. Kids only know one thing, right? 1 year olds, they only know how to be present, right? Like, they're not worrying about the past, they're not thinking ahead to what's happening in the future. But as adults, that's what we do, right? We dwell on things that happened in the past, we worry about things that are coming up in the future, and we're not always good at just focusing on the present moment. And the only moment that any of us can affect right now is this one that we're in, that we are being in right now. And this makes me think of that phrase, like, we are human beings, not human doings, right? And yes, we need to reflect and think about the things that happened in the past, and we need to reflect on those, and we need to plan and anticipate and prepare ourselves for the things that are coming up in the future. But that doesn't mean we need to dwell on them, those things that happened before. That doesn't mean we need to worry about them, those things that are coming up later in our life, tomorrow, the next day, the next week, next year. And we sure don't need to worry about them if they're out of our control, right? If there are things that are happening that we can't actually control, the weather, the traffic, the whatever, right? Those are not the things we need to worry about. But what we do need to focus on, what we do need to do the best that we can, is in the present moment right now. And, whether that's you're out to dinner with a friend or a loved one, like, be there, be in that conversation. Don't be worried about what's on your phone. And all this is easier said than done, right? We've all heard this stuff before. We all know this stuff and know that this is the way that we should do things. But that doesn't mean we always do. It's hard, right? There's a lot of things going on in all of our lives, and some have, stressful moments that might seem insignificant to others, and some have stressful moments that might seem enormous to other people. But they all feel personal and emotional and stressful and important to us, right? The ones that are going through it. And then, depending on what that is, sometimes you get through that, and then you have bigger things that come up in the future, and then you look back on those things that happened in the past that at the time felt enormous, and they really feel small, right? They feel insignificant compared to the things you're going through now. And I just want this to be a quick reminder, quick short podcast episode, to just be in the present moment. Just, if you have kids, just think about them, think about the times that they spend playing, the time that they spend doing something, and they're so immersed in it, they're so caught up in what they're doing, that they're not worrying about the things that happened before. They're not worrying about the things that are going on in the future. Or another thing you could think about is like a pet or something, right? Like, dogs are this way, cats are this way. They're focused on what's happening right now. That doesn't mean they're not excited about their meal that's coming up in the future. That doesn't mean that they don't remember things that happened in the past. But you can tell that they're very excited about the moment you come home from work, right? They're very excited about this moment right here. and they're not thinking about the whole day that they spent napping or hanging out without you, whatever that was. So whatever you're about to go do, I hope you go do it with all the attention and focus that you need to make the most of that situation, that scenario, for you and the other people that you're doing it with. I hope the rest of your day is awesome. Thanks again for tuning in to this short conversation on being present. And if you've never done so before, but you're a listener to this podcast, I'm sure you can imagine how important reviews are to get this out to more and more people. So do us a favor, drop over to the review section, leave a review on there. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Code, and we look forward to catching you on the next one. Later.